Welcome to the Made in Monroe podcast. Josh, Caleb, thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So after going separate directions and really working in separate jobs to provide for your families, you both found yourselves wanting to be back in Northeast Louisiana. And out of that desire, Etheridge Pipeline Conduit was founded.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your initial vision. Did it look like where you are today? How did you found the company and how did it grow to be what it is today?
The short answer is no, it didn't look anything like what it looks like today.
It generally doesn't.
I think Caleb actually made the best point, years ago when we first got started. He said, and I won't give him credit too many times.
Gave me credit.
But he was like, hey man, if I can just provide, jobs, steady jobs for the people of North Louisiana, and he didn't even say the people of North Louisiana, he literally said Monroe. And he said, I can sleep and die in peace. And that'll be.
I said right off into the sunset.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever, in the first couple of weeks.
It was.
Well, in the first week or two of putting this thing together, we thought we might die doing these shows.
So maybe it was pretty accurate.
Maybe it was pretty accurate. We were working pretty hard.
Well, so I was traveling. I was working. I was making probably, to be honest, I was making great money. I was up in North Dakota and I was making about $20,000 a month. And I was 23, 24 years old. I mean, it was pretty good. And so I was doing pretty well. He was over in Shreveport, but our hearts were back here, in the Monroe area. And he had his first job and I wasn't there for it. And that's when I realized, like, this is temporary. The money's good, but it's temporary. And, in my travels doing this, I was actually an inspector. So I was kind of the eyes and ears for other people when contractors were working for them. And I called him up and I said, man, I've ran across some really shoddy contractors in my short time doing this. I said, this could be a pathway back home. I want to be home. That's where my heart's at. And that's where his was too. I said, Shreveport's great, but this is where we wanted to be. I said, what do you think about maybe, seeing if we could dip our toe in this and, get a little loan. And, if it goes south, we'll both take a lick. We'll go back to doing what we're doing, but we feel like we could recover. And he's right. I said, look, we do this for the next 30 years. It's a pathway back home. It gives us a pretty decent living and we employ 30 or so people, through that time. We could ride off into the sunset. And so, that was, about a year before we actually got going.
We started planning for about a year. It took us almost a year to come up with the logo.
Yeah.
We
still have the old sketches.
It was napkins and notebooks, to get that stuff started.
Right.
But once Christmas came around, Caleb came back home for a Christmas break and he was pretty upset with his current employer. And he said, man, I want to go talk to customers.
Yeah.
And so we did. And we went to our first potential customer, sat across from her, and she said, at the end of the meeting, she just looked at us and said, hey, we could get started by Monday after next. In a week.
You think it's going to be that deal where, like, you pitch somebody and it's like 1 out of 20 type deal. They shake your hand and they say, we'll call you when we got something. Yeah. Crickets. No. First person we talked to.
And so
first person.
I can remember Caleb's legs starting to just like go up and down. And I was under the table and I just looked her straight in the face and I go, we'll be ready. And we got up, walked out of there, immediately fell into a flop sweat. And Caleb goes, Caleb said, we
we got to get equipment.
We don't have any equipment. We had
no. We're just knocking on doors trying to see if somebody wanted to get a shot. Oh yeah. He looks at me and says, we got to go get equipment. I looked at him. I said, I've got to go get my house off a job site in Kentucky. At that point, I'd moved to Kentucky. Right. I lived out on Fifthville camp. I was on Christmas break. I looked at him and said, I've got to go get my camper out of Kentucky. So,
we both sold our premium trucks, platinum.
Yeah.
We bought, work trucks with flatbeds. And the whole next week, we spent buying used equipment. We couldn't afford freight. We had to drive there and get it, like Virginia, Iowa. And when we got it, they were teaching us stuff. They're like, do you have a real trailer? And we're like, no, we don't. Do you sell those?
So from that moment, it was a whirlwind when we walked out of that office with that first offer. And, I'm not sure that it stopped yet. I would say it was a whirlwind from then till, but the till is still open-ended. It's been fun, but it's been wide open for the last 7 years.
That's really awesome, though, to hear that story, because I think there's a lot of people that have a dream down inside of their heart or a vision for something. They really never have the momentum to just, or the maybe like crazy
Right.
to go make it happen, right? And to make that become a reality. And it's a lot of hard work in the beginning. And like you said, you don't know how you're going to make it happen, but it's in there. And so you know you're going to make it happen somehow.
I tell people, I say, find something you're passionate about because there's going to be ups and downs and you're going to have that to hold on to. Start there. And a lot of times that's where it starts. Like you said, that feeling inside and you figure out what you're passionate about. And then it's almost, ignorance is bliss. You don't want to necessarily know everything because that may be a hindrance to getting, taking that first step. But, you just have to, I encourage people always when it comes to entrepreneurship, take the lead. There's a little risk, but there's a lot of reward.
I think there was maybe 2 or 3 times when Caleb and I stopped at either Five Guys or another place and we're like, what's our exposure? All right. We're so tired.
How do we back out of this?
How do we back out of this? There haven't been many of those conversations, in the last 5 years because it's been such a straightforward track. But, in the first 2 years, you really have to have a support system, whether it be at home or your faith or whatever it may be, community. Leadership at Washington was a huge catalyst for us. Once we realized the community was behind us, it gave us a whole new track. And we really found our why in Leadership Washington. And so, when we got there, we realized that we're job creators. And so once we realized that, it was a much easier, track or road home.
Yeah, we just understood, the impact that we could have on our community. And that's what, I tell people, I say, we just happen to be a telecommunications natural gas contractor. I said, if they come to us 10 years from now and they say, look, man, y'all taken all the jobs. You took all the market. You've got all the jobs. There's no more left. We're going to be like, okay, well, what's it look like over in manufacturing or, real estate or something? We're going to figure out ways to create jobs. That is our why. And we realize that through programs like Leadership Washington.
Well, I think that's really what it's all about. It's giving back to the community. I think that's given so much to you and you guys are doing that. You're a perfect example of that. And so tell me a little bit, as I was reading on your website, I don't know a ton about what you guys do. And so I was researching before we sat down to talk today. So tell me a little bit about what EPC is known for and all of the things that y'all do, because I had no idea.
Yeah. And so most people aren't aware unless they're kind of exposed to it, right? So we're a telecommunications. What we're known for, I would say, is our telecommunications work. So anything broadband, high-speed internet. We're not the people that when you call for service when you move into a new home or apartment that comes and hooks you up. We're the ones who put the main cables out at the road, that pedestal that they hook into. Yeah. We build out broadband infrastructure, and we do that under the ground. We do that up on the telephone poles as well. We're a full turnkey provider of telecommunication services. So that's kind of our niche.
I like to tell people, especially since the rural broadband funding has come out, a lot of these smaller internet service providers, they don't know what they don't know. Yeah. And so we've played a pretty good part in actually learning the rules and learning what it is they might want to do. We tell them all the time when they're like, what do you do? I'm like, you just draw a circle on this map. And you say, I'd like to have a network right here. And we'll figure out how to do it for you.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot going on with the broadband money. There's $90 billion or so just getting flooded in. The government realized, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, COVID. Yeah. When they started trying to do all this, telehealth and this education remotely, that we didn't have the proper infrastructure to do that. There's people out in remote locations or even just a few miles out of town that just don't have the internet to actually do that. And so it's going to impact those things as well. And so they said, let's put some money out and let's build infrastructure, literally broadband for all. Like anywhere there's power, we're going to put broadband to. And so there's, the application process is kind of a reverse auction type deal. And so you've got the internet service providers trying to kind of feel their way through this application process. How do I go about getting the money from the government in order to build this network that they're wanting to build that they're going to own when it's all said and done? And so we've kind of found a niche there too. It's not just being somebody that once your bid goes out, we tell you how much we can do it for. Right. We're actually on the front end of it, helping these internet service providers kind of navigate this process. So we're kind of full turnkey. When I say turnkey now, it's not so much just construction. It's all the way from the concept through the connection.
I was just about to say you guys are connectors is what that seems like.
It is. That's exactly what we do. Concept through connection.
So you've already said that you didn't think it would become what it is today. So as entrepreneurs and leaders kind of in the community, but even in your business and in your sector that you work in, what does the future look like from your seat?
Oh, man. I hate to give any secrets away.
Yeah, I'm going to ask asking for secrets.
On what I can say, we have a huge interest in workforce education. Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to continue to go down. We realize that there is a huge need, especially in the rural areas that we're currently working in. I mean, these people that need this rural internet, this is the first time that they're seeing what it could be applicable for, whether it be remote education, remote workforce. You can get out, you can do telehealth. A lot of these rural areas don't have PTO. You're in a job that pays you per hour. If you got to go see a specialist, you had to use a whole day off to go do that you didn't get paid. And it may be here in Monroe. It might be 2 hours away, but this gives them, this gives them a way to forward with that without having to cost them so much money. On the other side of that is being able to, be available to a lot of different vocations. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a huge need, in our state and other states in the technical fields. And, there's not an equitable way to scale workforce education into these small areas because the schools just don't have the money to have a subject matter expert or an instructor in every single school that knows how to teach welding, knows how to teach, plastic extrusion, fiber distribution, gas distribution. You can't have a subject matter expert in every single school for that person. So we've been really looking into a equitable, way to get that workforce education out.
Did that sound like passion?
It did.
What did I say? I mean, you've got to be passionate about what it is you're trying to do. You start there. You can tell just like Josh elaborating on that. It's something that's passionate. We're passionate about. We saw the need in our own workforce when all this money came out. We said, okay, how do we build a workforce that's going to answer this? It's going to give us a competitive edge. But then we kind of saw the bigger picture of what not only our states, but other states are being plagued with in the workforce development. So we're probably going to continue to lean into that. But really, it all comes back to a central focus that we kind of started with was that local. If you look at our website, we have very specific word. It says local to the communities in which we work. And we're just that's our strategy. We're going to continue doing that. When we're going to expand, there's broadband being built all over the place, but a little thing that's different about us is that local focus. We build these workforce development programs. And so when we go find an internet service provider in an area that wants to build there, we become local there for them. We're going to immediately go in. When you build 3,500 miles of network, guess what you have to do after that? Maintain 3,500 miles of network. So our model kind of looks like, let's go in and let's put out local job recs. Let's start talking about that maintenance contract after the build. And if that starts getting traction, we're going to go in there and we're going to say, okay, let's put some job requisitions out. Let's put some job openings out for your locals here in the area. Let's send them back to our partnership we have with Louisiana Delta Community College, give them the skills they need, and let's place them back in the build. They're going to participate in the build for the next 1 or 2 years. And then instead of you having an out-of-town company that heads back after the build and the internet service providers left high and dry, now they have a sustainable workforce of locals that's going to stay behind maintenance network after.
You affect the change in a small community.
Right. Yeah. You're taking the fiber boom and you're turning it into an economic boom for that community. And we really think that's going to be our future for the next 3 to 5 years. It's just to continue to go into these other markets and areas and just continue to use that model. We think it's going to be successful and sustainable.
So your connectors, your builders, what do you not do?
I'm terrible at golf.
I
don't golf a lot.
You can't do magic.
I can't do magic. I also can't play the piano. My left hand doesn't want to do anything while my right hand's moving.
Oh, man. No, it's not going you. We sit there for a minute.
Something tells me you could probably figure it out if you tried hard enough.
I'll just sing along.
Well, you guys really could be anywhere in the country doing what you're doing. You've built a very successful company together. Why Monroe? Why have you chosen to keep roots here, plant roots here? Why Monroe?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Part of it's just, it's what you know. And the second part of it is that you just, you fall in love with the community. And, as you, like I said, the leadership lifestyle really kind of changed the direction of our company. Not just because, it was like, hey, we found our wow, but also because we realized that how great our community was. As we got really involved in what's happening around here, you're like, man, you don't feel this kind of energy in a lot of places. And we really didn't realize that until, I did Leadership Louisiana as well. So I visited all these different places in Louisiana, and they all don't have an Uncle Roy that says it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful day. in Monroe, Louisiana. But, the energy we have here, hunting, fishing, the other resources we have with the river, the lakes that are around. I mean, you can't beat those things. Yeah. And then just the general feel of people. I mean, the general feel of the people here is
just how they support you. I mean, I just ran into somebody yesterday and, he just looked at me and he said, I just want you to know how proud of y'all we are. Seeing your trucks go by and just knowing that that's part of our community.
And they mean it.
They do mean it.
I know we get that compliment 2 times a week.
We get it all the time. And we know that coming into Monroe, if you're a business leader and you're thinking and you're considering bringing your business to Monroe, or you're a resident here and you're thinking about building a business in Monroe, just know that this is one of the most uplifting and supporting communities that you can be a part of. They really buy in. They don't see you as an out of towner. You come in, you integrate with the chamber and those things. And we really have a team, even on the chamber side, that'll really get behind you, but also as a community, like they're proud of you. Like, they want to see you succeed. And just from a business standpoint too, I'll just hit on this real quick. We have one of the best untapped workforces. This negative connotation we have of like you doing what I used to do, right? You got to travel and you can make good money, or you can stay home and struggle financially. That's not the reality. And, I'm here to say that's not the reality. And we'll scream that message from the mountaintops as long as we can. From a business standpoint, we have good jobs and we have good people in this region. Connecting the two is what we've got to maybe get a little better at, but it's here.
I just don't think people know what's in Monroe. I can't tell you how many times, like even with our business, I'll be standing in line to get lunch or something, and I'll hear somebody say, "What's that ski lodge on Tower Drive?" And I'm like, "Well, we do nothing with a ski lodge.
Absolutely.
Nothing with skiing." But they just don't know what they don't know. And so what I have found is it's like we've got to do a better job of getting the word out too, and letting people know, letting the kids that are in college know, like you can stay here and have a really great life, raise a wonderful family. It's a wonderful place to raise a family.
It is.
Here. I think a lot of times you graduate and you think that you've got to get out, you've got to go, and Dallas or Los Angeles or New York or somewhere looks really glamorous and glitzy and they throw big numbers at you, but you don't consider the cost of living. You don't consider that you're going to walk into a grocery store and you're just going to be another number. You're not going to have a name.
Right.
Whereas here you go in the grocery and I plan when I'm going to go, because if I go at 5, I'm going to be there an hour because I know everybody. Whereas if I go at 8, I may run into 2 people that I know. Right. And so, there really are a lot of positives, I think, to living in our community.
Yeah, it is. It's an awareness piece. We have great things here, and, not to, like Josh said, give away too much, but that's a lot of what we're looking at. How do we connect those two things? You have industry and you have the individual, and there's an awareness. There's something missing there where the awareness.
Unfortunately, you see a lot of people going in the exact same workforce as their parents.
Right.
And it's because it's the only thing they know.
It's familiar.
It's familiar. We lack the ability to have, a person in every school that really connects with a kid that tells them exactly what's out there. There's just not enough time. There's not enough resources.
Right.
And so getting that awareness out to the kids early,
scaling it to something we can do.
Part of what we're trying to do, especially in the rural areas. I mean,
career fairs are great, but you go out there, you got one shot, you're trying to mass of people. And then, when they leave, what's the follow up, right? We're trying to figure out some ways that we can connect the two, industry and individual, and then we can continue that connection, all the way through graduation and into job placement.
So tell me, why would you encourage people to stay here and to raise a family here? Like we've talked about business and why you would keep your business here, or why you would choose to plan a business here, but why would you choose to raise a family here in Monroe?
Well, you're 5 minutes from anybody.
I do agree.
Let's just start there. I mean, you're 5 minutes from anybody. You made the point too. Like you go through the grocery store, you're going to run into somebody that you know, and then you get that feeling of community. When your child is going down the street to a friend's house, like they're in walking distance, or you go to church with them in the community, and so it's just such a tight knit community that everybody again lifts everybody else up. And so it's just from that standpoint, it's just hard to imagine anywhere else, and then hunting and fishing is a big thing for me as well. And we have an abundance of that. I have a little 2-year-old, and the moment I had her, I went and bought a boat. Dad never had a boat when I had her. And it was just one of those things. There's a plethora of lakes and just so much recreation to do here, to go out and share those moments with your kids, with those families. I mean, it's hard to pass up what we have here.
some people would say that the proximity to Monroe and the lack of population is a detriment.
Right.
Although I think that it gives you more availability to the successful people in this area. If you lived in Dallas, which I have, if you go there, you don't know who to talk to. You have no clue. Even if you did your research, there's so many successful people, it'd be hard to get to them. Whereas here, I would say that when we started our business, who were we? I mean, we were nobody, but we had very successful people pour into us and just find us, or we found them, or we seen them at a get together, and they were very open to talking about, like, don't make the same mistakes as me. I mean, we have a much bigger,
and they're so open to, that's kind of to his point, is like, you do get invited to, over somebody's house for dinner, and it's just like, tell me what you're aspiring to do, or they might, like you said, it might not even be business related. It's just, what are you looking for? What is your values? What's your why? How can I help you get there? There's just so many people in this community that there's a true love and care for each other in this community that you just can't replicate anywhere else.
But I think people really do want to help each other. Like, it's genuine. It's not every man for himself. It's how can I, how can you stand on my shoulders and then become.
I think Louisiana's been beat down for so long.
Right.
I mean, Louisiana as a state, we're 48, 49, 50th in a lot of things, and we have been there for a while. It presents a lot of opportunity. And I think this new generation, and even our generation, I think that we look at it as a challenge. I think that's part of our generation is we're like, hey, we want to improve.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of playing into that. If you're last, we want to be in the middle. If we're in the middle, we want to be first. And so, there's just a huge delta there for us to really cross and catalyze on. So
if you got good ideas on how to come talk to us. Yeah. Heck, we'll be those people too.
Yeah, we sure will.
Well, I think we're kind of charged with giving back to a community that's given so much to us, right? And so how would you encourage people to get involved in the community, and what are ways that they can give back to the community?
There's lots of different ways. I mean, we're heavily involved in FCA. We're heavily involved in the Cancer Foundation League. We've done Boy Scouts of America boards. So I mean, we're involved. And I would say that getting involved is one of the things that I did. And immediately I started feeling, fulfilled by it. Yeah. And so as the more you get fulfilled, the more you're like, hey, I want to give this to somebody else. Right. And it just,
I can't tell you how many other business owners I've had that, since we're only been here 7 years, but just sharing our experience with, and they've had establishments here for much longer, and seem a little closed off to that, and you just encourage them, and they finally get plugged into things like Monroe Chamber, and you just all of a sudden they're at all the events, and they're like, man, I should do this a long time ago. We have great resources, Discover Monroe West. Plug into those resources, those websites. It's just getting involved, because like we've been pointing out here, is if you will just take the step, they'll take it the rest of the way. You're not going to stand in a room full of 50 to 100 people and somebody's not going to come up to you, introduce themselves and ask how they can help. So it's just take that step, get involved. We have tons of resources here.
Build the relationships. I mean, I think relationships are kind of everything, right? And so I think build the relationships.
Yeah.
Invest.
People helping people. People are people. I have a buddy. I won't name you, but when he first started here, he was in advertising. He said, what do you get out of all these different boards and things that you're in? I mean, is there a return on investment? Right. And I said, I really don't know, man. Once I got rolling in it, I haven't looked back. Right. And now he pesters me all the time on where I'm at the meetings, and he's just so involved, and you could tell it really grabbed him and took a hold. And I think that's what's coming. Anybody that gets involved, that's what's coming.
If you think that if you have a doubt that getting involved in your local chambers, in your local events and those organizations does not generate a return for your business, just come check it out. Give it 3 to 4 to 5 months, and you'll have all the evidence you need. Right. It is a tangible value to your business.
Well, one of the things I've found too, I get those same questions about being on boards and different things. And one of the things I say is it's not so much about what I get out of it. It's what I can give to that, right? And having a voice. I think having a voice is important in our community. And I think having a voice or speaking up and using your voice is kind of what has helped you guys today as well.
Right. It is your duty. Right. It's just like voting. It's use your voice. You have it. That's your duty to make sure you go out there and make it heard.
Yeah, we, I wanted to bring this up with the water municipalities that as we're deploying in these rural areas, it's a real detriment to these water municipalities. They have one, maybe two people working on their staff. They can't up their rates. People can't afford it. And so as we go through these communities, they get struck. The water gets struck. It's been
when we're replacing our fiber.
And, being able to go into these communities and talk about what's going on. We've even gotten that voice all the way down to Baton Rouge. And we've seen, legislation come out to protect these areas and even help them locate these deals. So, I mean, it's really, that's how much change you can make just by getting involved. I mean, in North Louisiana, we influence something in Baton Rouge. I mean, it's pretty,
that's just part of being in a kind of rural communities, right? Is we have a problem, we all get in a room and we discuss it. And then to your point, the community helping each other out. People do genuinely care. We got it all the way down to Baton Rouge, got some bills passed that would help those municipal water systems out in locating their things so that, who's getting affected at the end of the day? The residents.
Right.
Their water shut off or they're under a bull advisory. So we came up with solutions. And that's just things that you can do here that is probably going to be a little bit more difficult in some more urban areas. So
I think just being willing at the end of the day.
Right.
Just being willing. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I can't wait to see where EPC continues to go in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
You never know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank y'all.